All right. So obviously we got a shorter week. 1 day shorter. It's actually 2 days shorter because it's a long trip, and so you lose a day of travel. But we'll adjust to that. Normally Monday's a day off. We had some meetings yesterday, and then we'll have a couple practices here, and then head out for the trip on Thursday. Late game, as you know, which will be, we have to be smart in how we do our guys when on the travel, and get them ready for a 10:30 Eastern time clock game. But need to play. The last game is over. Try to get better and learn from what we did in our last game, which wasn't good, and get ready to play a top 25 team on the road. And I've been there, but never for a game. So I heard the environment can be pretty loud, so we're preparing for that as well.
So, Rich, the scout, when you have a short work week like this, not you, but parts of your staff have to work way ahead. How do you handle this kind of situation?
Extra ahead. We have guys on the staff that always working a week ahead anyway, so it's that's already being prepared for. So the biggest thing is just your player wise and making sure. And I've had plenty of non-Saturday games. I've had Wednesdays and Thursdays with a 5-day window before, so this is not that big a deal.
Did you treat Sunday differently, knowing that you have?
We didn't Sunday. We just did Monday. Normally Monday's a day off for them, and we just had some meetings. I don't want to, it's hard to have the full-on practices when you have a shorter week, especially when you're as banged up as we are. So I told our players it's going to be more mental than physical this week, getting it turned around and getting ready to go.
Rich, you worked with some new players this past Saturday, especially I saw offensive linemen who got more chances. So just evaluation of Agbo and Iosa.
And has them. A lot of times injuries give guys opportunities, and they get a chance. Some of the guys got in there and showed some pretty decent things. Sometimes it's hard to evaluate, but there was some glimmer of hope for some guys that got some extended time, particularly on offense. Defensively, we got so many things that we still got to work on. But to our players' credit, nobody was happy on Sunday. That for 24 hours we were all mad, but they turned it around pretty good. And understand what's at stake. So, like I said, and this is hopefully we don't get hurt too much. It seems like it's come in bunches. At certain positions, whether it's been quarterback and running back and offensive line, but the open date's coming at a good time for sure.
Coach, BYU's coach just yesterday talked about his previous matchups with you when he was DC at Utah and you were at Arizona. Do you have any memories of that matchup, and do you have any relationship with him? Because he talked about respecting your legacy, but do you have any relationship with him, and do you remember?
Yeah, I've known Kalani. I've known him a long time. I think we were in the Pac-12 together. Then we played each other. But I've just known him as he's a great guy. He's a really good football coach, but he's a great guy. Everybody in the profession really respects him. He's what the coaching profession can really look to as far as a role model for a lot of younger coaches. So, and he's done a great job there. I think they've invested in their program. They've got a passionate fan base like we do, and he's done a really good job. They've been, I think, the last couple of years they've been really good.
Do you remember anything about your matches with him?
No, it was we played him when I was at Arizona. I think we played him actually in the Cardinal State in Phoenix. It was it wasn't really a neutral. It was a neutral site game. It was I think they beat us 18-16 or something. It was a close game, and I think it was our opener in that one. I think that's maybe the only time I've played them. But I was back when I was way back in another life, I guess. And when I was at Tulane, we played BYU in the Liberty Bowl, and I was. This is after Tommy had left, and so I was kind of the interim coach for the bowl game, and we played them. And then after the game, Norm Chow, who's a friend of mine, was their offense coordinator, and Lavelle Edwards was their head coach. They invited me to come out and talk some ball with them. And so a few weeks after the bowl game, I went out to to Provo and spent 2 or 3 days with them, and got a chance because I wanted to learn from them too. You know, Lavelle was a guru on the passing game, and so was Norm Chow, and so we kind of traded some ideas, and that was a really neat trip. But that was how long ago? 20 years ago, 25.
You mentioned on Saturday with Khalil, there were a couple of throws that he wanted back. Is that something that you, Rhett, and Pat can teach, or is that something that they fix on their own?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's, you know, just getting more reps and getting accustomed to it. And sometimes you rush a little bit and you kind of aim it instead of throwing. But Khalil can make all the throws. And, you know, obviously he's a dynamic runner. You know, we have, you know, Scotty got some reps. We still have Max and Jalen. Even both of those guys are a little bit banged up right now. So they'll be able to practice some this week, but they will be a little bit limited. But, you know, we're looking and searching for everything we can to help us. And Khalil has got some, you know, big explosive type of ability. So I think his upside and his futures looks really good.
Rich, do you feel better about the health of your running back room?
Yeah, a little bit. You know, still don't know as much about Ty Edwards until the next 2 days. Sincere Bowers should be back. We'll find out more with today's practice. Then Dior, you know, came and played a little bit. So we're hoping, you know, that we could get 1 or 2 of those guys back.
Rich, how important is the first opening offensive drive? In both of your wins, you drove right down the field in the first offensive drive. How important is that setting the tone?
Yeah, I think that always the momentum part of it helps, you know, and confidence part of it. But we, you know, when we're getting first downs, that's, you know, consistently, obviously you got a chance to control the tempo a little bit. And that's been, in the last game, we couldn't do that, and then we couldn't stop them. So it was a combination of both. But, you know, you know, it's not like we're not trying, but we've got to do a better job coming out of the gates, I think, to your question.
Does it change, like, on the road?
Well, the biggest challenge on the road is obviously, you know, this is going to be the first true crowd noise test for our guys, you know, I think, from that standpoint. And so we got to be prepared for that. We'll be working on crowd noise every day, including we did some yesterday, and we'll do it today and tomorrow too.
Rich, just not to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you start the week more likely to focus on Khalil and Scotty than Jalen and Max.
Well, Jalen and Max are a limited. We wouldn't do anything yet anyway. Sunday was kind of a walkthrough. But they're going to be limited. So I'll tell more after today's practice. We think both of them should be able to go, but to what extent, I'll know better after a day or two.
And then you played altitude before. Is it anything? Do you have to tell your guys? Does it matter? Does it slow your tempo? Anything like that?
No, I've never even thought. I mean, in fact, the first time I've thought about that for this one is you just now bringing it up. So I've never really thought there's much difference. I've played out there and played in Colorado, played in Utah many times. I didn't sense anything from our players.
Just defensively with BYU.
What's that?
Defensively with BYU, what do you see from them? What are their
Yeah, they're really athletic. I mean, you know, they've got some big, strong guys up front, but they're as athletic at linebacker as I've seen all year with anybody. So I've been really impressed with them. Play really hard. You know, they're coached well. They understand their system, but they have some length and they do some different stuff defensively. So, you know, it's as good a group of linebacker and athletic DN types as we've seen.
You expressed some disappointment in special teams after the game the other day.
Yeah.
What's going to have to be done to kind of rectify some of those issues?
Yeah, we're you know, you always look at personnel. Do we need to change a guy or two? And then sometimes it's just our guys might be trying to overthink or do too much. You know, we can kick off better because we've seen it, and sometimes they kind of get in a little bit of a funk. We just got to, you know, give them the confidence that, hey, they can do it. You know, we didn't have a lot of obviously any opportunities to block a punt or anything like that, but you know, it was just we're not doing anything dynamic, and sometimes you try to force that too much, but at the same time we put enough time in there and we got good enough players that we can maybe make a difference in the game. That's what's going to be key, is not give up a big one, but maybe also create some kind of big play on special teams.
Thinking of things that have not crossed your mind, and I know tempo is part of your DNA, but as many guys as you've had out and as much trouble as you've had offensively, do you ever think maybe we shouldn't be running so many plays and, where things can go wrong?
Yeah, of course. I try to evaluate. Okay, do we just, if our defense is playing well, give them less possessions, milk the clock a little bit. But that wasn't going to happen in the last game because we weren't playing well on defense. So, we're seems like we're always better when we are pushing the tempo a little bit. I don't know if we're big and strong enough to kind of take our time and then slowly call the play, and then here we are, or here you are, and go. I think we're probably at the point where tempo is even more important at times for us to try to not catch them off guard, so to speak, but not let them get dug in and knock us off the ball, so to speak, because we're not as big up front as we need to be, and teams we're playing are pretty big and physical up front. So, we're looking at all that kind of stuff, but our guys are used to practicing and playing at a up tempo, and we just got to execute better. I've done this for years, and then looking back, our most successful times was not always going fast, but always having the ability to control the tempo. But you got to get first downs to do that, and that's where we're messing up.
You talked on your radio show a little bit last night about Dior Hubbard and just like telling him he needed to earn the opportunity and make the most of it. Is there something for you as a coach when a lot of these players are injured or ineligible at first and they don't start camp and they're not practicing the first couple weeks? Do they have to come back and practice and just like get in shape and relearn the system a little bit before you will say, okay, I trust to give you reps in a game?
Yeah, and it's not so much like we're trying to punish them if they're injured or out. It's just they're still learning what to do, and how to do it, and that's part of it. I mean, everybody's a freshman in the system right now, other than one or two guys, but it takes reps. Unless you're that rare exceptional athlete that where you don't need the reps to come in and be outstanding. For the most of them, you got to take reps and understand what you're doing and how to do it, and slowly get better at it. And that's where, it's hard to do that. When a guy gets hurt, the hard part is that then you can't move on to the next phase of your offense because you got to stop and give those guys more reps. So that's not an excuse. That's just reality. So you have a tendency to try to add too much stuff, to try to find an answer to a problem, and you just got to get better at what you're supposed to be doing to get better, in my opinion.
Coach, BYU, they've only lost 6 games since 2020. You mentioned the difficulty of playing there. What stands out to you about that home venue and those fans that they have there, and it's how difficult it is?
Yeah, they're supposedly they're into the game. They're loud. Crowd noise is a problem. You got to make sure you communicate. You got to be disciplined. You're not going to be able to hear coaches yell at adjustment or something out there. You got to make sure you're well prepared for anything that's going to happen to you, and then you got to tune it out as well. You got to hope maybe use it as a motivator. Like, the louder you're making them be, maybe the better off you're playing. So that kind of thing.
Coach, your defense had been a strong suit this past game, not their best day. How do you feel about the defense right now? You mentioned Zach's going to get it fixed?
Yeah, I think.
How do you feel about it now on Tuesday?
Yeah, I think it's the same players. We got good players. Probably need to dial back some of the stuff we're doing because that's what we do. Is sometimes as coaches we try to find an answer to everything, and it just doesn't work. And guys are for whatever reason not being as disciplined with their eyes or their assignment. So we've got to figure it out in a hurry. Zach and the defensive staff work really hard, and they'll have a good plan. But again, there's they're all kind of new. So adjustments that we make. Again, I wish everybody wish you had an open date earlier to kind of try to fix some of the problems, but it happened. We played 6 in a row, so we've got a short week, but we got enough time to get ready.
Rich, it's not quite like a Lavelle Edwards, Norm Chow offense they're running. They're still scoring and moving the ball. What do you see from the running backs and how they're taking care of their quarterback?
Yeah, their quarterback's a young guy, very athletic, tough guy. Is really, really composed. Been really impressed with him. The running back is, I think, one of the better ones, and big physical guy, one of the better ones in our league. And it starts up front. I mean, they got some grown men up there, literally, on their fronts, and some explosive wideouts. So they've done a really good job, and they'll keep you off balance. They'll do a lot of quarterback run stuff as well.
You mentioned on the show last night when we got you were pretty impressed impressed with him. You said he's a little light. That's your big thing with him, weight-wise, size-wise.
Yep.
Is that something that prevents you from wanting to take the next step with an offensive lineman and like put them in as a starter or more earlier in a game, even if you think the rest of their game is ready? Or is it something?
Yeah, I think, well, sometimes it just restricts you a little bit from being able to do all the things you need to do to have success. But, Malik's he's a good football player, a great guy. He knows he's done a good job learning. He's getting better each week. And so he's not like light, but he's a guy in an off season will probably gain 25, 30 pounds and we'll see an even better player. But I've been impressed with what he's done so far, and he's going to play more, as Donovan Haslam is going to play more as well, because Donovan's a big presence in there, and there may be a couple other guys that get some shots too.
How do you feel about Carson Lee in there?
Carson did okay. He's his snaps were good. He was composed out there, and he's a guy that can play all three positions, both guards and center as well.
Rich, you have an obviously dynamic player in Cam Vaughn, and I'm sure you've been racking your brains trying to figure out ways to bring that out more. What can you do to turn him into not only a guy who can make big plays, but who is making big plays?
Yeah, we Cam is probably or is one of at least our most explosive guys, and he's been in our offense a little bit. In fact, now that you said, we've talked about him about playing more and playing more positions, because he should be able to play all the receiver positions. He's also a talented athlete that can throw. He could play quarterback probably if he wanted to, but I would never put him in that right now, because Cam would, he'd run it every time, and he would never look for the second read. He'd just try to outrun everybody, But he's a really competitive guy. What we've challenged Cam to do is sometimes not to rely just on your athleticism, but some of the tips and pointers that we're giving him to be able to win some routes, for him to take that. And he's a very conscientious guy, so he's gotten that. But he can get his he's got more upside to get better at, just like a lot of guys do. And I think he'll take that to heart, because he knows people are going to give him attention. And when he does get one-on-one opportunities, he's got to win those.
How much did Bray's injury hurt him?
Yeah, I think that you think you probably hey, whoever they got to guard everybody. But Jaden was just as dynamic, I thought, in our opinion, that we had two. We felt pretty good. We had two guys out there that it's hard to double both of them, right? So that was the part about Jaden. He's a big physical presence and all that. But we've got, whether it's Justin Smith-Brown or Preston Fox or Jeffrey Weimer, one of those guys has got to emerge on the other side, because Cam's going to get a lot of attention.
Coach, where's your head at right now with your secondary, and what do you want to see from them entering the second half of the season?
Well, our secondary had played, I thought, pretty well until the last game. In the last game, we didn't make any plays on the ball. We didn't tackle well. We didn't do anything good. So I'm not. We're still high on them. Think they can do it, but this is going to be this will be a good bounce back game against a good team if they can play better.
In terms of the Cam Vaughn trying to unlock him, kind of to those questions, is there also a need to try to find somebody else that can kind of fill the Jaden Bray role, and that would in turn almost inadvertently unlock Cam Vaughn?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I know Coach Garrett, receiver coach, has challenged some guys a little bit as we are, say, hey, listen, you're going to get some opportunities, to make a play. But sometimes when you just say, well, you go make a play, that's not really fair to that guy, because you got to help them make a play. As coaches, you got to create a play call or a route or something that helps him win, and rather than just say, it's like funny, it's like you throw a ball to somebody and he drops it, everybody says, catch the ball. Well, that's the obvious, catch the ball. I mean, tell him why he dropped the ball. Was his thumbs in the wrong position? Was his eyes not focused? Whatever the case may be. So coaching is not just like, hey, go make a play. That's not coaching. Designing a play or designing a way for him to make a play is where coaches should be able to help.
What is the ideal size and physicality level for you with the offensive line? You've talked a lot about physicality, and I heard you talk about wanting bigger guys last night.
Yeah, the game's gotten bigger and bigger. So if you're under 300 pounds, you're too light to play a tackle. You know, with those big defensive ends or those 320-pound nose guards. So I mean, I'm not as big on the arm length or what have you, but you know, you still big people that know what they're doing beat up on smaller people that know what they're doing, and so we need to get bigger people and get some size, whether there's 6'5", 6'6" offense. Guards can be a little smaller, centers can be a little shorter. And then if you are smaller, you got to be athletic and tough and all that kind of stuff. So it's not just size, but when I look out there and like, gosh, look a little small, then we better be really fast. And so we got to fix that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.